Welcome back. Today let's talk about the psychology of nirvana. The distinction between the psychology of nirvana and the religion of Buddhism lies in the different ways each concept is understood and practiced. While Buddhism is a complex religion with various doctrines, rituals, and philosophical teachings, nirvana refers to a specific psychological and spiritual state within this framework. Buddhism provides the context, teachings, and practices that lead to the experience of nirvana, but nirvana itself is more closely aligned with a psychological realization or a state of being than a set of religious rules or rituals. Today I will explore the nature of nirvana, its psychological underpinnings, and how these relate to the broader religious structure of Buddhism. Nirvana, in its most fundamental sense, represents the cessation of suffering, desire, and attachment. It is a state of mental and emotional liberation from the endless cycle of craving and dissatisfaction that characterizes ordinary human existence. From a psychological perspective, nirvana can be seen as a form of enlightenment or awakening, where an individual transcends the habitual patterns of thought, emotion, and perception that lead to suffering. One of the key psychological elements of nirvana is the concept of mindfulness or awareness. In Buddhist psychology, the mind is understood to be inherently pure, but it becomes clouded by defilements such as greed, hatred, and delusion. These defilements distort the way individuals perceive the world and lead to cycles of craving and aversion. Nirvana represents the moment when these defilements are eradicated, allowing an individual to see the world as it truly is, free from mental distortions. The process of reaching nirvana is often described in psychological terms as a gradual purification of the mind. In the Theravada tradition, for example, this process is known as the path of the Noble Eightfold Path, which consists of right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These 8 factors are not merely moral or ethical guidelines, they are psychological practices designed to refine the individual's awareness, emotional regulation, and mental clarity. In this context, nirvana can be understood as a psychological state of profound inner peace, where the individual is no longer caught in the turmoil of mental afflictions. It is a state of equanimity and contentment that is not dependent on external circumstances or material possessions. Psychological research on mindfulness and meditation has shown that practices that leads to states of deep concentration and awareness can result in decreased levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. These psychological benefits are closely aligned with the experiential aspects of nirvana, where the mind is freed from the constant chatter of desire and aversion. Furthermore, nirvana can also be seen as a liberation from the ego, or the false sense of a permanent separate self. In Buddhist psychology, the concept of anatta, or no self, teaches that the sense of an unchanging, independent self is an illusion. The experience of nirvana involves the dissolution of this illusion, leading to a profound sense of interconnectedness and unity with all things. This psychological shift can be likened to the dissolution of boundaries between the self and the world, resulting in a sense of transcendence and oneness with the universe. Buddhism, in contrast to the psychological experience of nirvana, is a comprehensive religious system with a rich tradition of teachings, rituals, and ethical guidelines. It is not merely a path to personal psychological transformation, but a complete worldview that encompasses cosmology, ethics, metaphysics, and community life. At the heart of Buddhism is the Four Noble Truths, which explain the nature of suffering, dukkha, its causes, its cessation, and the path that leads to its cessation. The first of the Four Noble Truths is the recognition that life is marked by suffering, which includes not only physical pain but also emotional and existential dissatisfaction. The second truth identifies craving or desire, tanha, as the root cause of suffering, and the third truth asserts that it is possible to transcend suffering by eliminating this craving. The fourth truth outlines the path to liberation known as the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the same path that is also described as a psychological method for attaining nirvana. While the psychological dimension of nirvana focuses primarily on the individual's inner transformation, Buddhism as a religion also emphasizes ethical conduct, communal practice, and ritual. For example, Buddhist monks and lay practitioners engage in a variety of practices such as meditation, chanting, and observing precepts to cultivate virtues like compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. These practices are not merely instrumental in achieving nirvana, but are seen as integral to the religious life itself. In addition, Buddhism encompasses a wide range of schools and traditions, each with its own interpretation of the path to nirvana. In Mahayana Buddhism, for instance, the concept of the bodhisattva emphasizes the ideal of attaining Buddhahood, not only for one's own liberation, but also for the benefit of all sentient beings. This altruistic aspect of Buddhism underscores the importance of compassion and the interconnectedness of all life, which may be less emphasized in the more individualistic psychological focus on nirvana in certain schools. Buddhism also teaches the doctrine of karma, which holds that one's actions have consequences that shape future experiences. The religious teachings of Buddhism offer a framework for ethical living that aims to reduce suffering for oneself and others. This ethical dimension is an important part of the religious practice that complements the psychological pursuit of nirvana. The psychology of nirvana and the religion of Buddhism are not mutually exclusive, but are deeply interconnected. While nirvana represents a specific state of mental liberation, it is within the context of Buddhist practice and belief that this state is understood and pursued. Buddhism provides the philosophical and ethical foundations for understanding the nature of suffering and the means to overcome it. At the same time, the psychological experience of nirvana offers a direct, experiential realization of the teachings of Buddhism. In sum, the psychology of nirvana refers to the direct personal experience of freedom from suffering, desire, and attachment. It is a state of inner peace and clarity that arises through the cultivation of mindfulness, wisdom, and ethical living. The religion of Buddhism, on the other hand, offers a comprehensive framework for understanding and achieving this state, encompassing teachings on suffering, karma, ethical conduct, and communal practice. Both aspects are intertwined, with Buddhist teachings providing the context for the psychological experience of nirvana, and the realization of nirvana reinforcing the transformative power of Buddhist practice.